Hello there, you absolute legends. Emma McElhinney here with Piss Off Perimenopause and the musings of a bullshit queenager. I am here to ruin your misconceptions about perimenopause, fat loss, and kick midlife in the face. So if you think your 40s are a drag, think again. Because every week I am going to be stripping down the myths about perimenopause. I'm serving you raw, unfiltered truths about your health and smashing misconceptions about fat loss. And a whole lot more. So if you thought you knew midlife, you don't know the half of it. Aging is inevitable, but getting old is a choice. So buckle up, grab a glass of something yummy, and let's get to it. Hello there, and welcome to this episode of Piss Off Perimenopause and the musings of a bullshit queenager. So today's episode is going to be all about lifestyle, and I'm going to provide 5 lifestyle adjustments that anyone can do. And the reason why lifestyle adjustments are so important is because everything that we do is in our control. And it's such a powerful place to be, that knowing that we can make ourselves feel better, be healthier, be happier. And it doesn't have to be, ripping everything up and starting again. When we talk about adjustments, this is just small things that we can all do, that we can start today. So what I would love for you to do as we go through this episode is just take some notes. There's some things that you go, I'm not doing that. And that is absolutely okay. There's some things you go, yeah, maybe I could try that. Give them a try. Now, the one thing that I would say about anything to do with lifestyle is that small changes are not an overnight fix. They're not a quick fix. They take time. It takes consistency. And that's one of the things that we're actually going to be talking about today as well. So why are lifestyle adjustments so important? Our lifestyles are lifestyle. It's how we live our life. It's how we do things. And very often it's what we do that are making us feel worse. And that's pretty blunt. But if you think about perimenopause, a lot of people talk about the HRT changed my life, and I took this one supplement and I've never had brain fog again, and I dropped 20 pounds. Now that's great, but that doesn't happen for everyone. There are many, many women I know who have been experiencing many symptoms of perimenopause, brain fog, tiredness, body composition changes, heightened anxiety, and gone and got HRT, and nothing has happened. And the reason for that can be, not always, but can be because there's actual adjustments that they can make for themselves that they are going to move the needle even more than what HRT would. So let's get to it today. So the number one thing that we can all do, and you're probably all going to roll your eyes at me, but is looking at your overall nutrition. Nutrition is the number one thing that you have in your toolkit to create healthier, happier hormones, to create a healthier, happier body, and also improve mood and energy levels. So one of the things that can be a real blocker when it comes to nutrition is thinking about food only in terms of losing body fat. And we know that, yes, food is probably the biggest controllable that we have for body fat, but it's also the biggest controllable that we have for our long-term health, to mitigate against disease. And it's reckoned that 80% of lifestyle-related diseases and illnesses could be eradicated with healthier nutrition choices. So some of the things to think about today is not just nutrition for fat loss, but nutrition for gut health. Now, when we get into our 40s and 50s, we start seeing lots more cases of women experiencing IBS-type symptoms, bloating, pain, and there's loads of things that we can do. Now, let's think about some basics that we should all be doing regardless of what our goals are. We should all be having a diet that has plenty of fruit and veg. Now, ideally, we want to be having at least 7 portions of fruit and veg every single day. But if you are only eating 2 portions, then you want to start where you are and build that up. I always go for 6 or 7 portions of fruit and veg in my day. And it doesn't matter, it really doesn't matter what the fruit and veg is at this stage. You just want to be consuming that amount of fruit and veg. We want to be looking at a diet that has good quality lean proteins in it. A lot of women don't eat enough protein, and whether that's due to what we've been told over the years, and about, we need to eat more, less dairy and less meat. And yes, to a certain extent, we probably do want to be eating less red meat and less processed meat. But lean animal protein is probably the easiest way to get increased protein in your diet. The other thing to start looking at is the quality of your food. Now, we know it's common sense to say that the more processed the food, the worse it's going to be for you. And there's a lot more research going on just now about how processed foods and ultra processed foods, how they impact people's long-term health, brain function, body composition, and hormones. So there's nothing hard and fast come out of that just yet, but there's a lot of insight into it. But if you're eating a diet that has lots of fruit and veg, it has a lot of whole grains, it has a lot of lean proteins in it, and a lot of good quality fats, like unsaturated fat, then it makes sense that you are automatically going to be eating less processed food, just because, you're filling yourself up properly. So there are some really good guidelines. In terms of quantities of these foods, there's a lot of people go down the calorie counting route because they have a body composition goal. But in terms of portion sizes, you want to be having a minimum of a palm-sized amount of protein at every meal. You want to be having minimum a thumb-sized amount of unsaturated fat with every single meal. You want to be having 2 fist-size portions of fruit and veg at every single meal. And you want to be having a good cup-sized of whole grain carbohydrates with every single meal. And that's just some good guidance. So it's not hard and fast rules. You must do that every single meal, but that's good practice to get into. So when it comes to looking at nutrition, is looking at where you can make some quick wins. So something really easy could be if you have 2 takeaways a week, look at reducing that down to 1 a week. If you are relying on, frozen ready meal type foods a couple of times a week, look at reducing that down to 1. It's all about making small, achievable steps that work for you, that are going to work for your life. It's not about ripping it all up and starting again. The other thing we have to consider with nutrition is micronutrients. So the foods that I've just described, they're protein, carbs, and fats. They're called macronutrients. It just means big. But we also have to look at micronutrients, which is vitamins and minerals. Now, we can get most of them from our food, but sometimes we do need to supplement. Now, there's a huge marketplace for supplements, as you probably are aware, when you go into your face with all these menopause supplements, and some of which, some of them are pretty pricey. Some of them have been proven to work for some people, and some of them have not. And it's all down to personal preference. Now, if you don't have any contraindications, i.e. you don't have any illnesses or you're not taking any other medication that would have an impact, like some good guidance would be a really basic supplement stack could look something like an omega-3, vitamin D, especially if you are north of the border like I am, a good quality multivitamin, calcium, and magnesium. These can all make positive impacts into how you feel, but they are not going to be the magic bullet. The magic bullet is coming from your nutrition, and then think about supplements as being exactly that. They are supplementary to your main source of nutrients, which is your food. So that's the first adjustment to start looking at. The second one, and a lot of you won't like this, is reducing alcohol. Now, this has been a huge topic of late, and it's something that I've been on a journey with myself, and looking at how much alcohol I consume or have consumed, and looking at how it impacts me. Now, as we get older, there's going to be some things that you notice. Like you might notice your body composition changing, you might notice your torso thickening, you might notice that your sleep quality is not as good, you might notice that you are more prone to mood swings, or you get bouts of anxiety, you feel stressed, irritable, and all these things. And when we look at those things individually, it's easy to just palm them all off as being, well, it's my hormones. And to a certain extent, it might well be, but there might be actually things that you're doing that are making these things worse. And for me, those things were all made worse by consumption of alcohol. Now, I'm talking about alcohol here. It's like, oh my God, you must be drinking like 4 bottles of wine a week. No, not at all. Like at best, probably over the course of a week, a bottle, maybe 2, depending, and, split between me and my husband. But alcohol ultimately is a toxin. So what that means is when you consume a toxin, your body wants rid of that toxin. Does not make sense. So what's it going to do to get rid of that toxin? It's going to stop every other function from working well. So that means your metabolism doesn't work, which means you're not going to lose any body fat if you're in a calorie deficit. It means that your cell renewal isn't going to work particularly effectively. So it means your skin's going to get dull, hair's going to get dull, nails are going to crack. It just means that our body thrives in balance and our hormones are in charge of maintaining that balance. And if we have a toxin in our system, that balance isn't going to be balanced because we've got a toxin and our body just wants rid of it. So that's one reason why we might start noticing these bigger impacts on us as we get older that alcohol has. Now, one thing that really, it took me a long time to notice this, which is really bizarre because it's so obvious. But every time I'd have a glass of wine, even just one glass of wine, I would then always wake up between 4 and 5 in the morning. Now, I'm not particularly, I don't particularly need all the sleep. Like I don't need 8 hours a night. I'm good on 7. And I used to be part of the 5 o'clock club, and I get up and I go to the gym and I do all the things, and be in my office seat by 8:30 every single morning, right? I cannot do that anymore. I need more rest. I need to recover properly. So, but that time of day was always fine for me to get up. Not anymore. Really does impact me. So have a look at your sleep quality, have a look at your sleep quantity, and do a little diary and see if the alcohol, if you are drinking alcohol, see if that correlates. It makes sense. Now, the other thing to be aware of with alcohol is from a calorie point of view. Now, we know that alcohol is empty calories. That simply means that it has no nutritional benefit to us whatsoever, not a single iota. But if you're drinking wine, let's use wine as an example. A bottle of wine is about 800 calories. Now, if you're in your 40s and you're maybe, say, average height, so 5'5", let's go with me, I'm an average height, 5'5", size 10, sometimes a size 12, and you are trying to lose body fat, then your calorie number might be something like between, it depends how much you move, like let's say 1,600, 1,700 calories a day, right? But if your bottle of wine is 800 calories, that's pretty much half of your daily allowance in that one glass of wine, one bottle of wine. So it's really hard to maintain a consistent calorie deficit when alcohol is being consumed and alcohol has got a lot of calories in it. So that's why you might always see the suggestion of, if you're trying to lose body fat and you want to still enjoy a drink, you would change to maybe a gin or a vodka or something that's a clear spirit because it has less calories in it. However, we have to remember that the percentage of alcohol per glass of wine is maybe 10%, and a measure of gin alcohol percentage is like 40%. So overall, you're not consuming any less alcohol as such. It's the calorie volume that's different. So it's worth paying attention to. Now, a good tip with alcohol is, if this is something that you do want to reduce, and I know a lot of women do want to reduce it, don't want to necessarily stop it completely, but do want to reduce it, is think about how much you're actually enjoying it. And studies tell us that the first glass of whatever it is always amazing. The second glass is nearly as amazing. And the third glass is not as. So it doesn't get any better after the second glass. So it's worthwhile doing an experiment with yourself and going, right, am I really enjoying this as much as the first? By the time we get to the third, our defenses are lower, our inhibitions are lower, our ability to make good decisions is lower. Now, when you're 20 and at university and going to clubs, that has a very different meaning. Like your poor choices are different then than they are now. Like we're talking about, should I have 1 packet of crisps or 2 packets of crisps? Back then, is should I kiss that really ugly boy or that really ugly boy? So yeah, just pay attention to how much you're enjoying it, and that you're not getting caught up in then, because it's there, I'm pouring it. And that can be a really insightful thing to look at. The other thing that's really important is exercise. Now, there's this funny misconception about exercise that we must be in the gym 5 days a week and we must be doing like 5 hours a day, and I'm on the treadmill and I'm on the rower and I'm on the cross trainer, and then I'll do a few squats and then I'll do a few shoulder presses, and then before, like, oh, I've done my 2 hours and I'm out, right? Nobody in real life does that unless they are specifically training for an event. I like to think of my training as just training for life, training to live a little bit longer. Now, the thing with exercise here is, yes, it's optimal to do exercise that's going to help increase your muscle mass, because our muscle mass starts to deteriorate as we get older. So it makes sense to do resistance training. There's an element of, we want to do some cardio-based exercise because it protects our heart health and it helps our respiratory health. And also we want to make sure that we're still flexible so that we can be mobile and active into our old age. So that's a lot. Right, when I start going, okay, well, you need to do resistance training, you need to do cardio, and you need to do flexibility stuff. Like, you're like, oh my God, you've just told me that this should be easy. But it's about changing our mind from the fact that this is all consuming. This is going to be so time consuming. I can't do it. I can't fit it in. I've got kids. I've got a job. I've got a business. And it's about starting where you are right now. So when we start thinking about, like, where am I right now and what are the small things that I can do to make changes, it makes it a lot easier to deal with. So let's start. So we talk about cardio. Some people love running. Most normal people hate running. If you're a running lover, I apologize. I don't hate it. I'm just not very good at it. So how do we increase our cardio levels without going for a run if we don't want to? Well, that's quite easy, because you can just start by walking, and you can then incorporate slightly faster bits of walking into your walk. You can find hills to go up, and that is going to be naturally increasing your heart rate, and then you slow it down and it brings it back down, and then you do it again. So you can incorporate that into your day-to-day life. So everybody should be walking. And when I'm working with clients, I always suggest like 10,000 steps a day as a good one, right? There's no scientific reason for that 10,000 steps. It's just a number, but it's a nice number. It's a round number. It makes sense in our heads. But realistically, if you're getting anywhere between 8,000 and 12,000 steps in a day, then you're doing really well. So it's easy for you to incorporate that slightly higher intensity, speeding up, going up a hill. So that's something that you can build in day to day. Now, the top tip with walking for me that's worked, and for everybody, is front load the day, because it's so easy to get the kids ready for school, do all the breakfast stuff, tidy up, and then just go to your desk. But if you can grab 30 minutes, even 20 minutes before you sit at your desk and get outside and get moving, you're setting yourself up for success on that day, because you are naturally releasing feel-good hormones and chemicals like dopamine, like endorphins, like serotonin, that are going to help you be more productive and more focused and more positive throughout the rest of your working day. So it makes sense to do things that make you feel good, that are good for your health in the morning, so that you can get the powerful benefits from that. So that's easy to build in more cardio-based movement. Resistance-based movement, most people see this as just in the gym. Now, you don't have to do this just in the gym. Some people love the gym, and that's fine. But realistically, if you're not doing anything resistance-based, and by that I mean, added resistance, putting your muscles under additional resistance through either bands, kettlebells, dumbbells, barbells, sandbags, anything you like, toddlers. It doesn't have to be in the gym. So if you are, I don't have time to go to the gym, my gym's 30 minutes drive away, or I've got fear, you can get some dumbbells at home, a couple of 5-kilo dumbbells if you're a beginner, and you can keep them in your office, and you can set a timer, and you can do squats throughout the day, you can do shoulder presses, you can do some press ups. There are things that everybody can do. Very often, more than not, it's not a case of I don't have time, it's more of I don't want to. But think about this type of exercise, resistance training, as, this is the one thing that you can do that is going to keep you living longer, healthier, and more independent as you get older. It's not a tool for fat loss. This is a tool that's going to stop you rolling about on your back like a lost tortoise when you're 85. You're going to be able to get yourself up. You're going to be able to put your own shopping away. You're going to be able to get in and out of a car. And that's what the power of resistance training will give you, is because it's going to give you more muscle mass. It's going to keep your joints and ligaments and tendons, nice and strong. So you can do all these things. So if you do like the idea of a gym, and it scares you, and this is a lot of people, it's like, oh, I don't want to get all muscular, I don't want to get stacked, right? Well, as a female, that is really unlikely to happen. We don't have enough testosterone in our bodies for that to happen. We're not going to get bulky. Building muscle mass is what gives you that lean and defined and toned look. When you look all topped and tight, that's what muscle mass does. But if you are gym curious, shall we say, then the best thing that you can do is go to a gym and ask for an induction or book 3 or 4 sessions with a personal trainer, just so that you learn proper form or how to use various machines or where to go or what to do. Now, the mistake that a lot of people make is they go to the gym, they hire a personal trainer, and they expect to lose 2 dress sizes working with a personal trainer for 3 months. That's not how personal trainers work. Personal trainers are there to help you get fitter and stronger and improve your form. Personal training alone is not going to be the thing if you have got body composition changes as a goal. So I hope that helps. Now, the other piece about movement exercise is mobility, flexibility. Now, a lot of people love yoga and Pilates, and that's brilliant. That they are really good tools for helping your mobility and your flexibility, but they're not going to help you get fitter or stronger. Might get some core strength in there, but it's not going to take you from, not being able to lift a cup of tea to lifting a 15-kilo dog. It's a weird analogy, but you know what I mean. But these are good things to maintain good mobility and flexibility, but they don't need to take up a lot of time. If you're like me and you love the idea of doing additional mobility work, but you never do it because you're like, oh, I'm just going to get out. See, building in 10 minutes at the end of, even 5 minutes at the end of your weight stuff to just have a bit of a stretch, still really, really beneficial. So the key themes with exercise here is start where you are, make really small adjustments, and remember that this is another thing to remember at weights is I talk to a lot of women, they're like, oh, I can't lift that, that's too heavy, or oh, you want me to a 7.5-kilo dumbbell to buy? And you're like, well, how old were you? How old was your child when you stopped lifting them into the bath? Right? And chances are like 3, maybe 4. How heavy is a 3 or 4-year-old? Right? We're talking a good few kilos here. So it's about a little bit of context that you are stronger than you think you are. So when you go to the shop and you want to buy dumbbells and you're tempted by the 2.5-kilo pink things, no, absolutely not. You're stronger than that. Start a little bit heavier. If you want to improve your heart health, build in some fast walking. And if you want to improve your flexibility, there's lots of different things on YouTube that you can do, just 10 minutes that you can do in front of the TV. So much easier and so much easier to deal with than going, oh, I have to go out for another hour and do a big yoga session. Number 4 on the lifestyle adjustments is reducing stress. Now, this is probably the hardest for most women I know, because multiple responsibilities, stressful careers or businesses, homes to run, kids, aging parents, all the things, right? Trying to keep all of these plates spinning can be the biggest form of stress on a female in their 40s and their 50s. Now, let's think about things that cause stress in our life, right? So time management, overwhelm, these are all big things. But we also have to look at what we're consuming externally. And even just watching the news is quite a stressful experience. Even just being on social media, you're getting presented with all these things. We have attention spans of gnats, like 7 seconds or something is the attention span. So we are constantly bouncing between Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, the news, reading, I've got so much, right? So that is a form of stress in itself. If we don't sleep properly, yes, that's another form of stress. If we don't have good boundaries in place, that is another form of stress. If we are drinking alcohol and it's impacting our mood, that's another form of stress. There's all these different things that we are doing that are increasing cortisol levels in our body. So what do we do to help reduce that? So the primary one that you want to start doing is looking at the controllables, right? So putting the phone down at 9 o'clock, reducing the amount of caffeine that you have on a daily basis, reducing the amount of things that you look at on TV or on your phones, removing apps that you get no value from, having good, strong boundaries in place, learning to say no to your boss or learning to say no to your clients, not dealing with things after a certain time. Some people even find that they are stressed from family members. And you might have heard me say this before, but I had a client who was really troubled by emotional eating, right? So she couldn't put her finger on why this kept happening at a specific time every week. And we went through the routine, and what we discovered is that she was speaking to a family member earlier on in that day, every day. It was on a Sunday. She'd speak to the family member earlier on the Sunday, and then on a Sunday evening, she always had this bit of a spiral of overeating, uncontrollable overeating. And it was because of speaking to this family member. So we made changes to when that happened, and that completely changed her approach to our overeating. So we have to sometimes take a little bit of a look in and see, right, okay, is there anything happening throughout the day before the stress hits throughout the week that could be impacting on my overall stress levels? Now, the challenge that we have with, typical high performers, type A personalities, perfectionists, control freaks even, is that they often are very used to running with high stress in their life, and sometimes isn't evident until they stop. And if you're somebody that, goes on holiday, and the first week of your holiday, you come down with flu-type symptoms or you get a cold, that can often be a sign that you're operating at high stress levels. And it's not good for you. And sometimes we do wear it as a badge of honor. Oh, I'm so stressed, and oh, I'm so busy. But how do we work at reducing those cortisol levels? So, introducing good quality sleep routines, introducing an exercise routine, creating good boundaries, reducing the amount of external stressors that we consume, switching off social media, stop using the phone, having conversations with loved ones. These are all really good ways of looking at reducing our stress levels. And the final thing here to think about, and this, I really struggled with this one because I had about another 4 things that I could add to this top 5. But I thought this one was kind of a catch-all, so it's kind of cheating. But thinking about anything that you do in a different way. So I mentioned a minute ago about perfectionists, all or nothingers, control freaks, type A, but learning and accepting that you cannot be perfect at everything. Give yourself permission to not be perfect at things. And this can be a really hard thing to get your head around. And it's all about thinking about, let's think about somebody with an all or nothing approach to their diet. Like they're either eating perfectly low calories, lots of fruit and veg, really plain, fairly boring meals Monday through Thursday, and then come Friday, they are headfirst into a family pack of kettle chips or a multi-pack of donuts or whatever. And then they go on this spiral over the weekend, and then come Monday, they're back on the perfectionist train again. The key there is thinking about, well, how do I make those bad days a little bit better? So that could be, right, well, on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm always going to make sure that I have a really nourishing breakfast that has protein, that has fruit and veg. And then whatever the rest of the day will come. But you know that you've banked that for the breakfast. It could be looking at, if you know that you normally knock back 3 bottles of wine over the weekend, you can have 2 bottles of wine. Just have 2 bottles of wine, and then you're significantly improved the worst part of the weekend. So that's just an example. So giving ourselves permission to be better, not best, is huge. And then once we've started looking at how do I make the bad things a bit better, sometimes even making the good things a bit worse can make all the difference. So it's certainly worth thinking about, what are you doing in your life where you have to be absolutely 110% in control of, and what can you let go of so that you're not being perfect about it. And that can be really, really hard. And I speak from experience there. So making the bad things a little bit better and the good things a little bit worse creates this feeling of balance, creates this feeling of, you know, if I can do this and I can do this, then I can be a little bit more consistent with my lifestyle, with reducing alcohol, with my nutrition, with my exercise. And that's a really powerful place to be, is learning that, you know, you can't and shouldn't be perfect at everything that you're doing. So I hope that makes sense. By starting to work on some of these, and as I said, you know, pick and choose what works best for you, how good it feels for you, and let me know how you get on. Let me know what's working. Let me know what's not working. You can get me on Instagram. You can get me on Facebook. And in the meantime, I would love for you to take part in the quiz that you can look at in the show notes. And thanks very much for listening. And I will catch you on the next one. And just like that, we have spiced up another episode of Piss Off Perimenopause and the Musings of a Bullshit Queenager. Massive shout out and a huge thank you for hanging out with me today. I really hope you've been entertained. And remember, don't be shy, hit that subscribe button. And until next time, keep those heels high and standards higher. Remember, it's all about glowing, growing and downright owning it. So catch you on the flip side, and don't forget to click the link in the show notes to get your freebie.